everybody, Jedimanda here to give you another video for the week. And this video I think everybody's gonna really love because it's a handy dandy trick that you can use in all of your clothing, not just cosplay, but your regular clothing that you wear every day. And that is fixing holes in your jeans, especially ones that kind of happen in the crotch, to be a little TMI. Now this happens to pretty much everybody. You have a favorite pair of jeans or leggings or some other pants and you wear them too much and the crotch literally starts to wear out. Now this is going to be a quick and easy way to repair those. All you need for this stitch is your jeans that have a hole in the crotch. These are my poor boyfriends. I'm fixing yet again. Interfacing, an iron, and some matching thread. To kind of go over what this stitch is going to look like, if you're familiar with a satin stitch and embroidery work, this is basically what it's going to be. We're going to be camouflaging the stitch work into the pants. So we're virtually making a whole new kind of set of fabric for that hole that you wore out in your pants. The first thing you want to go ahead and do is start up your iron. Make sure it's to a really hot level because these pants are actually pretty heavy, and so you're going to want pretty much the hottest level on your iron. Another really helpful thing to have is a sewing ham to put under the, in between the pants so you can iron over it. If you don't have a sewing ham, you can use a pillow or pretty much anything that's round and it's got cotton inside of it. So you're gonna wanna take your pants. Here's the interfacing that I have. You really don't need a lot of interfacing, you just need a very small amount, like this amount. You're only gonna need a bit of interfacing as the size of the hole that you have in your pants. Now once you have your interfacing cut, go ahead and put it underneath of your pants, in between your ham and the pants, with the sticky side up. So that it actually covers the whole section of the hole that you have, to where it looks like there's another piece of fabric right there. Grab a press cloth and your iron and go ahead and iron it to the fabric. Once you have the interfacing adhered to your fabric, now it's time to stitch. Now the thread that you choose, you're going to want to match the whole spool of thread to the pants itself. When you're choosing a thread, you usually want to match just the actual thread to your fabric that you're working on. In this case, since we're doing a satin stitch, which is basically a whole coverage of stitches, you're going to want to match the whole thread spool to the fabric. So this is the one that I'm choosing. It's actually kind of a magic thread that I use for all of my jeans. It matches with everything. A couple things before you start. You're going to be using just a straight stitch to put this together, and you're going to be basically having your hand on the forward and reverse of your sewing machine the whole time, because we're literally going to be making parallel rows back to each other of straight stitches. So you're going to want to go forward and back, forward and back, forward and back, a whole bunch of times. Another note that you're going to want to see is look at your fabric, especially your jeans that you're working with, and see the way that the fibers are woven, because you're going to want to basically do the exact same thing in the exact same direction as the fibers already existing. You do not want to do a straight vertical up and down stitch with your crotch seam. You're going to want to go kind of at a diagonal, almost like a bias, not really a bias, but at a diagonal of your pants, because you're essentially making more fabric that's not there. So let's get started. You're going to want to start at the top, kind of the top right, and eventually drag your fabric all the way to the bottom left. So you're going to be kind of pushing and pulling with your left hand or your opposite dominant hand that you use to sew, and your right hand or whichever hand you use to sew on your reverse and forward button on your sewing machine. So let's go ahead and do a couple stitches. Also, side note, you're going to want a very small stitch length for this. I usually set it between a 1 and a 2. Side note that I didn't realize when I did this and I actually broke my thread. You're going to want to change your needles to a jeans or very thick gauge needle for this since you're using heavier weight fabrics. I'm going to suggest you use a universal needle 100/16, that's a good one, or needles that are just labeled jeans. If you are working on leggings, you're going to want to use a stretch or knit needle, not one of these needles. It will not work for you and your bobbin will get all gummied up. Now let's get back at it. Doing the same stitch with the lines of the fabric themselves. Just watch how your fabric is actually woven and then follow along those lines. You don't want to pull a whole lot with your left hand or whichever other dominant hand you use on your sewing machine. You kind of want to let the feed dogs take it, but you're also going to want to kind of shove it to the right side so you can keep moving along, basically intersecting your other crotch and inseam seams, bleh, that's a mouthful, while you're doing this sewing. So don't pull a whole lot, but pull slightly. Once you have done a portion of it that you like, go ahead and kind of reverse it. Pull the opposite direction and go back over it with some stitches to where you get a satin stitch. This is what it'll look like. You see how these stitches that I made are going with the woven part of the fabric? That is exactly what you want. And it looks like this is a little bit lighter color than the actual fabric itself, but that's okay. It's gonna be in the crotch. Not many people are gonna see it. But that's essentially what you're going to want to do. For the rest of the hole that you have, go ahead and do that same stitch all the way through. It'll take a bit, but I promise at the end it's going to look great. So let's go ahead and finish this. Okay guys, it's finished. This is essentially what you want. A brand new patchwork fabric using a satin stitch on your sewing machine. Straight stitch only, front and back reverse, interfacing underneath. Boom! Your hole is fixed in your pants. Yay! Mended pants! Mended pants! No more holes in crotch! If you guys have any other questions about mending your pants, especially your crotch seam, or any other different types of fabric to mend, or any kind of just mending questions. I used to be a tailor and I used to do this all the time on people's pants. I know what I'm doing. Just make sure you tag me or my channel into your videos and questions and I'll gladly answer. And that's it for this week. I'll see you all next week. Bye!